take the garbage out. Oh man, what's that? Huh. All right, we're gonna see what we can do with this. Oh man. Wow. Hey guys, how you doing? So yeah, I found this cool device. I mean, who would have thunk, man? Wow. This is a nice little Wyse device. I mean, this is the Wyse the Z50D. I mean, what a device. I mean, it's got a nice DVI port, display port, a couple of USB, NIC, and if you want, you can even throw in a Wi-Fi card. It's a nice device. I want to be able to reuse it. I'm not a fan of the Wyse OS. I'm also not a fan of the management, so why not convert it to an IGEL device, right? So I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to take the UD Pocket and I'm going to test it. So here's the UD Pocket, and I'm going to test it. I'll plug it in, boot it up, see if it works. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll convert it to a universal desktop converter tool, and I'll turn it into a thin client. So you know what? Let's try this out and be IT ballers together, and we'll convert this device to something more useful, something more secure, something more reliable. All right, so we have our device plugged in, and as you can see here, it's powered off. And what I'm using a USB capture device to, transport the screen to my laptop. It's a device called Magwell. So I'm able to, capture the USB screen. Unfortunately, the audio didn't sync properly, so I have to do the recording after the fact. So, bear with me while I describe how we go through this process. All right, so what we're going to do is we power on the device, and we're going to go into the BIOS, and we got to type in the password, which is Fireport with a capital F. So you're going to hear me, when you go into the BIOS, you basically hit delete, and you get into the BIOS. And once we get into the BIOS, we just got to double check and make sure that the boot devices are set and go into the boot screen. So you're going to see me here move into the boot screen and change the order of the devices. So you can see here I have all the USB devices at the top. You can go in and can reorder the devices by using the plus or minus keys. And then once you're ready, you hit F10. So once you set everything up, you're ready to go, hit F10. And then you'll see the screen pop up and you just say yes. And what this is going to do is reboot the device. So now what I need to do is plug in my USB key. So here I, had to go in and, get the USB key plugged in, and I power on the device. All right, so we're going to power on the device. And the first thing I'm doing is I have the UD Pocket plugged in. And this is, again, to test to ensure that, everything can boot off of the IGEL OS. So the UD Pocket is a great way to just make sure a device can be supported. So I'm booting here off the UD Pocket device, and you can see, the boot takes about no more than a minute, and in about a minute we'll be into the device, and we'll be able to see whether or not this Wyse device can support the IGEL OS. So you can see here the UD Pocket is booting. And again, I just have the UD Pocket plugged into the front of the USB ports. And in a moment, you'll see the screen pop up. And you'll have your IGEL desktop. So nice little gray screen with the little IGEL hedgehog. And you have a default setup. So I've already set up this UD Pocket. And, I have a browser and a Citrix receiver set up. And again, this is a great way to test to see if your device can or cannot support the IGEL OS in the conversion process. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to power down the device, and we're going to insert the universal desktop converter tool. So here I am trying to power down the device, and you'll see me power it off, and we'll shut the device down. All right, so now what we're going to do is we plug in the USB key with the Universal Desktop Converter ISO that's built into it. And again, that process you build using the converter tool, and you can insert the bits onto a USB key and then boot from that USB key. So here I am plugging it in, and we will boot up off the USB key. So you'll see again the Dell screen, and then we should be booting off and you'll see the screen. So in this case, I'm going to choose verbose mode so that we can see what actually happens kind of behind the scenes. I kind of like that anyway, just in case anything does go wrong. And we're going to see this boot up. So it takes about 30 to 60 seconds to boot. So we'll wait for that. All right, so here we are. We are in the Universal Desktop Converter screen, and you're going to hit OK for English or whatever language you want to support, and it's going to bring up the wizard to support to install the UDC onto the Wyse Thin Client. You hit yes on this screen, and as you can see, it recognizes the hardware. You know, it's pointing to the flash ISO on the device, and it tells you the version of the UDC. So you hit install firmware. And then here, you know, you get everything going, and it's going to take about 2 to 3 minutes to get this process done. Maybe a little longer depending on the device. And when it's complete, we'll come back. All right, so we're complete, and as you can see here, we're ready to go. Now, what you can do here is pull out the device and reboot. Now, bear in mind, you can use a USB stick to install this, or you can use the Universal Desktop Converter appliance, which does a PXE boot and TFTP to install the OS image. So what we'll do here is we will reboot this device. And when we boot back up, it should now be an IGEL OS thin device. All right, so now we're rebooting. And as we reboot, you'll see, again, the Dell screen. And you'll see it jump into the IGEL logo. And there you go. So you got the Universal Desktop logo, and you'll see it boot into the IGEL Universal Desktop. And as we boot up, you'll notice that the default image is set. And again, this is an unmanaged device, and we will bring it under management momentarily. So as this boots up, again, you'll see a default desktop look and feel, and we will then bring this device under management in the Universal Management Server. So there you go. So we just now converted a Wyse Thin Client to an IGEL OS Thin device, and we'll now bring it under management. All right, so here we are. We got the Universal Management Suite up and running, and I need to now go in and scan for my devices. So I'm going to click on Scan for Thin Clients, and when I do that, this is going to bring up a dialog. I can now scan the local server. I can do an IP range, or I could do a list of IP addresses as well. So I click on Scan, and hopefully this is going to go out and find my device that I just brought onto the network, and it does. So there's my UDC device, and you can see that it found a license automatically. And then I need to tick off the box include and hit OK. And then once I do that, it's going to pull it into the management system. And I hit OK on this. and you're going to see it is ready to go. Now, next, what I need to do is take one of the profiles and drag it onto the device. And what this does is takes any settings that I set up, something like my Citrix receiver, the browser, things like that, and applies it to the device. And then I can say, when do I want it to take effect, now or during reboot? And then just for good measure, I go in and I just do a quick refresh of the license just to make sure the license did apply. And in a minute, I should see a dialog. So there's the dialog. And again, you can set this up to do it on reboot or on demand, and the user can click OK. And what this is going to do is it's going to download a profile to the device and apply that profile to the device. So what's great about this is now you can manage a bunch of devices all at once and give them unified experience across the enterprise. So for example, here you see I have the Citrix icon on the desktop with my apps, and then I also have a browser that points to the storefront. So this just creates a nice, clean, secured, reliable experience. All right, let's take a look at the final product. Now, you can access the device if you go into the console. So, for example, I'll bring the console here, do a full screen really quick, and you can go in and shadow this device. So you can do it right from the console. And as you can see, it's using typical UNC. I just have it set not to do a password, so I can do it right from the console, and it's nice. But here I am already P'd and then doing a kind of a double hop into the session. So let's do something else. We can also write directly from my desktop. I can VNC into the client. So let's connect in, and again, we can connect in, and I can go to full screen. And as you can see here, this is the device. I got the background, everything's set up. And again, this is set up through the profiles, and you can do everything from set up your Citrix receiver to set up the browser. And if you see here, I can set up my browser to log in. So for example, I can log in here to the Citrix storefront, and you can see, boom. Now what I could do is put this into what's called kiosk mode, and I could potentially lock this out. So for example, with this profile, I got it set where when I close the browser, it automatically kicks it back open and will take me back to that homepage. So I could almost turn this into a kiosk device if I really wanted to. So just a quick example on how this endpoint turned out and why you would want to use IGEL OS and convert your current devices into thin devices. All right, so what do? We just took this Wyse device and we converted it to an IGEL Thin Client. So, instead of taking an outdated device, or if you're torn and I really like IGEL, but I have a bunch of Wyse or HP devices, you can just convert them with the Universal Desktop Converter tool. So remember, I took this device and I first tested it with my UD Pocket, and I did that just to make sure that it would work. And then I used my USB key here to convert it. And again, you can use the Universal Desktop Conversion Appliance to use Pixie to convert a bunch of devices, or you can stick to the trusty USB method. Well, that's it. And if you like it, feel free to leave some comments, and I'll be doing more of these in the future.